You may be seated. Thank you very much for being at tonight's meeting. If you have a cellular phone or other electronic device, if you'd silence it at this time, we'd appreciate it. The first item on our agenda tonight relates to citizen concerns. Are there any concerned citizens who would like to approach the board? Hearing none, I am sorry. If you'd state your name and
My name
address.
is Diane Widener. I was the Woodbury County captain of the Iowa 99 Bible Reading Marathon from June 27th to July 1st out front. And the 132 people that signed this Bible that we had inscribed to the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors, and I just wanted to present that to you today in thanks and appreciation.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah,
appreciate it.
and that to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate this, and we will pass this around our board, and appreciate you exercising your First Amendment right and also upholding the role of faith. All right. Any other concerned citizens? Hearing none, we will move to item number 3, which is approval of the agenda dated September 6th, 2016.
Move it.
I'll second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the August 30th, 2016 meeting.
Move it. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item number 5 is the discussion and approval of the claims. I'll move them.
Second.
And there's a second. Is there a discussion on the claims? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Actually 2 items under good news reports, 6A and 6B. The first one, Deputy Cleveringa and his exemplary service, very, very appreciative to the Sheriff's Office. These are things that our community, our county citizens have come forward with deep appreciation for the outstanding work that law enforcement has done. And want to highlight this. It originally appeared on a Facebook post, and then defer to Andy if he'd show yet again some media highlighting this, and then we'll respond as a board and have any comments from the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, if you mind making a couple of comments, then we'll make a couple of our own.
I'll make it quick. I don't know that I could take credit for that kind of action. I'm just proud that Kyle was an applicant. He stayed around. The first time he didn't get past the Civil Service Commission. The second time he came through again, and we were able to hire him. And I'm telling you, he's been a great employee, and that's just an example. And what impressed me the most was what he said in his interview with the media. He said that this could be any officer, but this lady just happened to send a letter in. Could be a Sioux City officer, could be a state trooper. So I'm impressed that he realizes and recognizes that this is what we do day in and day out. And for me to take credit for that, I can't. What the community can take credit for is he had good parental upbringing and that he's been well mentored.
Well, and we understand that Deputy Cleveringa is working tonight.
He works
and-
at 6, and I wasn't going to pay overtime.
Right.
That becomes a sticker.
Well, speaking of that,
Good thinking, Dave.
Thanks, Larry.
Larry, do you mind reading? This is just a short note on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, thanking him. If you'd pass that along to him, our appreciation for his service, and Supervisor Clausen.
Deputy
Cleveringa.
Cleveringa,
Cleveringa.
thank you so very much for the exemplary service that you demonstrated most recently and the care that you took and the actions that showed great fidelity to duty. You went above and beyond the call of duty, and by doing so showed great credit upon the Woodbury County Sheriff's Office, as well as all law enforcement. In this day and age, we support not only the core function of law enforcement in helping keep the public safe, but also the way that you led by example in doing so with great care and compassion, with gratitude, and it's signed by all 5 members of the board.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
It's great to see. Thank you very much, Sheriff. The other item I just included in here is Woodbury County ranked high for traveler spending. You can see from this Sioux City Journal article, we're 8th in the entire state among 99 counties, according to a new study by the U.S. Travel Association. Travelers spent more than $285 million in Woodbury County, which is nothing to sneeze at, and it is actually a boon to economic development. And had some comments from Erica Newton, as far as the Sioux City Events and Facilities Director, and just really highlights the jobs that are created, as well as the spin-off economic development. And they mentioned in here Cone Park, but also the Ag Expo and Learning Center that we hope generates and builds on that kind of economic development. So that's a very good thing. So just thought I'd mention that. And speaking of economic development and tourism, Rick Schneider.
Thank you. Rick Schneider, Conservation Director. I wanted to follow up on that article because it's important to note that the county conservation boards around have a lot to do with economic development in their counties. 2012 study done by Iowa State University showed that Woodbury County's conservation facilities and areas and things like that had over $11 million economic impact each year here. So I just wanted to point out that we're a big part of that as well here. That's thanks to all the support we get from you and the support from the public out there. So, thank you.
Absolutely, and you do an excellent job. Larry?
Did you want to mention the event going on Saturday while you're there?
Oh, well, yeah, the annual Nature Call, the 13th annual fundraiser for the Dorothy Pico Nature Center will be Saturday at 6 o'clock at the Sioux City Convention Center. So we do work with the city all the time as well.
Right.
So that'll raise funds for things we do out there.
This all seems spontaneous and very natural, but it was well planned out behind the scenes, so thank you. All right, very good. Thank you very much, Rick, appreciate it. All right, having dispensed with items 1 through 6, we're now on item 7, Human Resources, Director Ed Gilliland. This is the approval of the memorandum of personnel transaction.
Move it.
A motion
Second.
and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 8 is approval of a resolution thanking and commending Mickey Paul for years of many services to Woodbury County. This is a lady who may be known to you for not only her fidelity to service, but her longevity and being part of the active, very definition of active generations. And so this reads that whereas Mickey Paul was born on September 13th, 1917, she raised 4 children who are of retirement age, and whereas 1917 was a year of significance for several reasons, including the construction of this courthouse, it was when J.R.R. Tolkien was actually writing the precursor to the Lord of the Rings, and there were several World War I battles being waged for the good of the world. She is celebrating 99 years of spirited living. She was 5 decades in the movie theater business, and she desired to be in the movies. She's become somewhat of a celebrity herself. She is the Walmart greeter over at Singing Hills and works to this day at 99 years of age and always is early for work and never late. and after 9 decades describes the world as having changed for the better. We are going to, if this resolution is so moved today, present this to her on the 13th, which will be her 99th birthday, and we hope to help make that special. So with that, I would move this resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Here-
I remember this lady out at, we used to call Sunset Plaza. There was a movie theater out there, and she was the ticket lady. That's in the early 70s. Yikes.
Quite a career and life. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 9 is approval of a notice of property sale resolution for parcel number 122580. That's also known as 2600 Center Street.
Move it. To be on the 20th day of September at 4:35.
I'll second. There's a second by Supervisor Young. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0.
These are good to move. I've gone out and looked at a lot of these, and you can't build a house on it. You can't do anything with it. Some of them are straight down or straight up. And the neighbor would like to have control of it. Boy, let's let them have it.
All right. And I've been asking Heather Satterwhite, who has moved to full-time in board administration, to start quantifying. You'll notice more and more of these moving. And so I'm appreciative of her work on getting these back on the tax rolls. Item number 10, Building Services. Our Director, Kenny Schmitz. Item A is approval of a courthouse and LEC building HVAC automation project engineering contract. And so, Kenny, if you'd give us some introductory remarks and give us an overview of this action item.
Kenny Schmitz, Building Services. The action item before you is for an engineering contract with Resource Consulting Engineers. This would be a requirement of the HVAC automation program for the courthouse in the LEC, whereby we would be updating all the existing heating and cooling control functions. And I do have Corey Metzger with Resource Consulting Engineers here. Corey, would you like to step up and if you've got a minute and just give the board a brief overview of what you'd be doing as part of your engineering fee?
Corey Metzger with Resource Consulting Engineers. So the proposal that we've provided basically covers the upgrade of all of the existing control systems throughout both the courthouse and the LEC. Right now you have a hodgepodge, I suppose would be an appropriate term, of different control system components. In a number of areas you've got pneumatic controls controlling one device, digital controls controlling another device, so you can have simultaneous heating and cooling in the same space. Additionally, a number of the major components don't have modern controls, and the vintage of controls that you have in the buildings is reaching a point where it's no longer supported, so getting replacement parts or replacement controllers is going to become difficult. Additionally, we think that this is probably an appropriate time to implement the project, and maybe I'm overstepping my bounds here, but with the steam trap work that is going on, you should be improving energy efficiency. This would help to improve comfort throughout the buildings as well. That steam trap project will probably help comfort in some areas, but the controls system project will dramatically improve comfort and energy efficiency as well.
So you're basically saying we have a mess.
Try to nicely say that.
And an engineering firm is required by code, and this is typical within the costs based on the CIP that we identified that would be expended in these two buildings. Is that a fair statement, Kenny, or you want to comment on that?
Yes, that's a fair statement. These are the costs we identified in the 2017 CIP and allocated for. The only thing that I would mention that this while it seems to be a very good upgrade for the county, one thing it will not do is if we have a particular system or a particular area that is currently not sized correctly, it doesn't address, in other words, a big air handling unit or something like that, but it does address all the controls that are associated with that unit.
Kenny, I've got a question. Is there a reason we didn't bid this? I mean, is the steam trap, is that an integral part of this? Or is that a completely separate?
It's really completely separate, but with that said, it makes sense to have resource consulting engineers involved with this project as well, since they just have gone through all of the prints and the drawings for the steam trap project. They're familiar with the entire courthouse now, and they have those drawings. So that's not something, or that is something that someone else would have to develop. So that's, there is a cost savings associated with that, and also a time savings.
64,000, is that what we're looking at?
That's correct.
I'd move it.
Second.
And Kenny, this is not the actual contract, correct? This is their proposal, and you plan to come back with the contract itself?
That is correct, Joshua. This basically approves the dollar amounts and the proposal, and a contract would come back as part of that. It would be a state-required contract, if you want to call it that.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second toward that end. Is there further discussion?
What is it, 100,000 now, Joshua, before you go out for bid?
135, I believe.
100,000 is competitive quote threshold, and 135 is for the formal bidding process. But this is engineering and consulting services don't fall under that, so it would be up. I mean, you could draft an RFP and ask different firms to submit proposals, but I think Kenny's kind of explained why they've gone with them on this project, because they're already familiar with the system. So I think that's part of the reason why the code allows for consulting services, that you don't have to bid each one out.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 10B, again, Kenny Schmitz, this is approval of the LEC and Courthouse HVAC Automation Systems Project Management Contract.
This contract is also, again, related to the Law Enforcement Center and the Courthouse HVAC Automation Control Upgrade. Again, another state requirement to provide for a project management of that project. The financial impact currently would be $13,940. If and when we send this project out for bids, the Baker Group contract would also have a percentage fee attached to it in conjunction with those bids, or the lowest bid being approved.
And Kenny, I know this came up last time too when we did the Baker Group contract. We're actually committing to the full project at this point. There's no contingency in the contract for not going forward with the bids. I mean, the financial impact, or the true financial impact, is whatever that ultimate fee is going to be. There's a payment up front, that's the $13,000, but the contract does say that they will get 15% of whatever the project is.
And Joshua is correct. This would just be a portion of the total.
Can you explain, Kenny, for us what project manager in this instance will do and what that kind of fee will include?
What the project manager will do is he'll do oversight of all of the engineering. He'll make sure that all the systems are included in the engineering. All the controls are covered and nothing's missed. Oversight of the project if as it moves forward, if it moves forward, it'd be the oversight of all of that.
Will there be testing and verification that would be a part of that on each of these separate components?
Yes, there would be. Everything would be tested to make sure it was functioning as designed and responding, if you will, as designed.
I would move it for 13,940, plus in here is the percentage, should it go to bid? Or is that another? It's in here? It's in here.
I believe
And
it's in.
the contract as written talks about the amount that's budgeted for the project, and that's kind of the rough figure that they're working with, I think, and that's, is it around 800,000?
Estimate around 800,000, yes.
And so it's 15% of that, so, I mean, it's probably around 120 is what we're talking about.
Shane, would you like to comment?
So basically, this, sorry,
name
Shane
it.
Albrecht, Baker Group. This will be just like the steam trap study, as we've talked with Kenny. This 13 is just your commitment. If the project goes and you guys decide to tank it and it doesn't move forward, but once we get the low bids in and bring it back before you, we'll actually bring you the contract with the dollar amount that actually says whatever if it's 800,000, it'll be 120, but you get credit for the 13 that you've already paid off that number. That's part of it's one contract. That's why it's written that way. But we will bring another contract before you once, so the night you're making a decision on the lowest bid, you will know exactly what your commitment is at that time. This is the upfront fee for all the design that we were talking about ahead of time.
That's not the way that the contract's written, though, as far as it doesn't contemplate a second contract.
It does not. You're right, it doesn't. But that was our agreement with Kenny that we would come back before you with the second contract, like I said during the.
You're saying reflective of the value of the percentage times the competitive bid?
That is correct. Minus the 13.8 that you've already.
13,940.
Mr. Chair, I'll second the motion.
Okay. Is there further discussion, questions?
I shouldn't even say this, but I don't know how they make any money on us because they're here all the time. This terracotta thing ate up days of time, and they seem to have been here every time I turn around, so I appreciate the oversight. It's, I think, very critical we have that to make sure it's done.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. And the motion carries 5-0.
So shrink it down.
Item C is the approval of a resolution establishing courthouse terracotta as an emergency repair project. And we'll defer to you, Kenny, for introductory remarks. We also have Terry Glade from CMBA, who wrote a letter that is in your backup materials on behalf of CMBA, establishing some of the rationale for the reason that this emergency situation is being asked to be deemed by the county board. Kenny?
So a week and a half or so ago, we started doing some inspecting of the terracotta around the courthouse. We noticed that there were some gaps and some missing mortar in spots, and which raised a concern. However, we did find a piece that was alarming to us. It appears to be, and I hate to use the word falling, but it appears to be falling. And you can refer to our architect's letter that was sent to Chairman Taylor. We've got a piece that we believe we need to consider as an emergency situation and deal with it. It's on the south side of the courthouse. It's near the courtroom 203 window repair area. We've currently tried to put some straps on that piece. We've been told by Mid-Continental Restoration that their estimate is that that piece could weigh 200 pounds. What we don't know is if it's just that one piece, or are there 2 or 3 possibly more that could come with it. Just by viewing it up close from a high lift, it looks like the 2 or 3 that are next to it aren't in real good shape either. Are not in real good shape. So there is a little bit of a fear that it might not be just one piece. It could be 2 or maybe 3 pieces that need to be restored. I don't have a good estimate for you. Originally, Mid-Continental Restoration told me $65 per man hour and materials. And their best guesstimate on taking one piece down was 4 to 5 days with a couple of men. Now, with that said, they weren't taking into consideration costs for a high lift or scaffolding that they would need to take that down, and there's been also some concern about how that gets taken down. The current lift that we have, that we're working on courtroom 203 windows on, won't handle that weight, and so it can't be utilized for that. Also, if another lift was rented to do that, there's concern about what if more than one piece wants to come? What if 2 or 3 want to come? And so I think Mid-Continental was leaning toward the idea of setting up scaffolding.
Are they the only people that repair terracotta in the area?
I'll be quite honest with you, Jackie, I don't know the answer to that. And it's something we'll have to check into. The gentlemen we had there come and take a look that are currently working in the city, for the city of Sioux City. Terracotta was not really their area of expertise. They're more familiar with caulking and mortar repair and things like that. However, they did say that they have their experts in their home office in Kansas City. We're talking about trying to get them down here to take a look at what we've got.
I saw Terry stand up when
Terry,
that question was asked. Do you have something to add, Terry, to Supervisor Smith's question?
Yeah, Terry Glade, Cannon West Brigger. They're probably not the only ones in the country, obviously, that can work with terracotta. They are the closest ones right now that have that expertise. And out of the 4 or 5 companies that we talked with, some companies weren't even, well, we originally talked with some companies as far as the tuck pointing. That's kind of where some of this started. And some of the companies weren't even interested in the tuck pointing because of the size and the nature of the building. So it is a limited number of people that are qualified to handle this. And so right now, those are the ones that we've spoken with directly about this.
And they will be across the street at City Hall.
Correct.
Where are they out of? Can you remind us? Are they
They've got
Kansas City, Omaha?
Yeah, Kansas City and Omaha, and I think a couple other locations even.
Right. And right now, just so that the public knows, we're talking about a 200-pound piece potentially that could fall. However, you have taken precautions to cargo strap and then cargo strap and actually put the lift underneath of that one piece. Is that correct? I just want everybody to know this, not only the seriousness of the situation, but also the proactive and preventative measures that you've taken as well.
We discussed what options might be to try to keep that up in place in case it did decide to go and fall, and that's why we decided to put the straps on it and do what we could do to try to keep it from falling, or if it did fall, to give it a place to land on the lift where it couldn't fall too far. So we've done, I think, all the precautionary things that we can do.
Okay. Can you tell us what an emergency situation means? And maybe Joshua can help us out too. By the board taking this action, what does it mean other than, I mean, we can all agree it's an emergency, but what does it mean by code for this to be?
By code, and when we went through this on the windows also, that basically means you're able to go without the competitive bid process. It's such a, I can't remember the specific code number, maybe Josh has that there, but it allows you to proceed without the customary bid taking, that procedure. Right, and Kenny hasn't visited with me specifically on this. I just know that when we did it with the windows, we took a close look at it and make sure that it met that criteria. And part of that process is getting a certificate from the architect indicating that the condition exists. I believe that's the purpose of the letter, to fulfill that requirement. And then the following step is for the Board of Supervisors to hear about the situation, pass a resolution, and then that can go forward without the formal bidding requirements. I think it would be good to have some discussion as far as the scope of the repair itself. So I know the amount that was put in or that was referenced in the backup materials was $5,000, but we don't even have to worry about whether it's an emergency repair or not unless we're at the bidding threshold, which is $135,000. And then, so I'm assuming we're talking a number similar to that.
Can I just ask, in the historical committee, one of the things that we talked about, and then you can illuminate us a little further on this, but is that once that piece is removed, whether that was the 5,000, whether by that first action there wouldn't be secondary and third and fourth order effects that other pieces would need to come down? And one of the questions was, okay, we get them down, but now do they remain exposed over 4 to 5 months of winter conditions, thereby exacerbating other conditions by not being put back? And it sounded like, but you gentlemen know what you're talking about and I don't, it sounded like that question may not be answerable until you remove that first and second. So that's where, is that a...
Yeah, that's an accurate description. And in the letter, I made a brief reference to that it, taking one piece down and replacing it may not be the extent of the action required. There may be more to this emergency, let's say, than just the one piece. And so it is a little difficult to quantify, and I understand that that's difficult for you to say. You can't obviously just have an open checkbook. I guess our initial thought is the current emergency situation is probably limited to the overhang at courtroom 203. There are other areas that are definitely need to be reviewed, and probably work need to be done on those. But I think maybe we might have enough time to at least do a survey that can potentially point out some of those areas. But the 203 overhang is the current one that is crucial.
You even said in comparison to the courthouse windows in 203 that if that were deemed an emergency situation, this would be much more dire than that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's much more dire than the windows were.
At some point in time, depending on how many emergencies we keep finding,
Right.
are we going to relook at our CIP list? I mean, some of those may have to be put on hold or
Jackie
go out
brings up a good
farther. I mean, because we don't have an open checkbook, and it seems as though we're spending a lot of money on things we didn't anticipate. So
The
Bring-
backup
good
mentions,
point, Jackie.
the backup mentions some reappropriations from Trosper Hoyt tuck pointing. Is that?
Yes, we have some money allocated for tuck pointing at Trosper Hoyt. I would recommend that we reallocate those funds and use those funds for terracotta for this year.
Well, until you really take a really good look, we don't have a clue. As you go around just the first 2 floors in the terracotta, that's one issue, but then there's the whole tower that you can't get to without scaffolding or a drone or something. So we really don't know what's up there either. So I think we need to look for emergencies first. And then the second thing is to look at the overall picture and come up with some kind of a estimate so we can move forward. Otherwise, we're talking hot air here.
Well, do you have anything to add to that, Jerry?
Just, yeah, along those lines, again, I think if we can get again, what's an emergency, what's not, the absolute critical things addressed, and I feel the same way that there probably should be a survey done and a report probably that talks about tuck pointing, the additional courtroom windows, just, kind of, I think, especially with the 100-year anniversary coming up, and just general maintenance and life of the building, preservation of the building, I think that would be a prudent step to line item those things out.
Shane?
After our historical meeting last week and everybody talked about getting a survey done, I contacted Mid-Continental. Their Kansas City office deals with terracotta all the time, so they have good experts there. So they're supposed to be putting forth, as was asked at the historical meeting, a proposal to give you a survey of the whole building. Not that anybody else couldn't, but because they were already right here on site. Somebody to give us a dollar amount for what it would cost to give us a survey to answer some of your guys' questions that you're asking tonight is, what's it going to cost? Because that's one of the things they will be able to do, is at least tell you a ballpark of what they would see it costing from their experience. And since that's what they do, they should give us pretty good numbers.
We pay for the survey.
What?
We would pay for the survey.
Yes, ma'am.
And how much is that? We don't know.
That's what they're getting in contact with us to figure that out. And it will be brought before the board then to make a decision on whether you're going to move forward with the survey or not.
Well, I would move to declare an emergency repair situation relating to the Woodbury County South Side terracotta and reallocation of CIP funds. If I can get a second.
Second.
Go to discussion, Larry.
Okay. My concern is we're going to address the emergency situation we have now. And anything beyond that is going to fall under the survey?
I'm assuming we get something back from a survey, and I'm just anticipating that it's probably going to tell us we have some other areas that are in need of repair. And I believe this would probably look something like the courthouse windows project, whereby we have one area that was an emergency repair that we had to take care of immediately. And then we've got some other areas that we can move on through the bidding process. I'm thinking it'd probably look something like that, Larry.
So
I think
what we're dealing with then is the overhang on the south side right now, and that's what we're approving this evening.
Well, the resolution.
very
Yes, with the
specific,
resolution.
yes.
Yes.
Except to add to that, the parts on the vertical side, the piece underneath obviously is about to go, but the pieces on the vertical corner, they don't look too good either.
No, they don't.
And it kind of was, are they supporting each other?
Yeah, and that's what we need to figure out. I wouldn't say that this emergency is only with the underside pieces. I'm thinking it's that whole overhang, because even the top surface are terracotta pieces with joints that needs to be evaluated, I think, as part of this, because that kind of, it all does tie together.
And I said this before, but here's the silver lining in all of this, is that we know the emergency exists. It's part and parcel of the historical committee, our building services director and project manager working in a coordinated effort to mitigate this before we found out that there was a piece that fell and any damage irreparably was done to the historic landmark or to anybody. So that's the upshot in all of this. And with that, unless there's further discussion.
It's kind of a blessing that that piece of marble fell in the courtroom. I mean, the light bulbs went off when that came down.
Just doesn't feel like a blessing to me.
Well, it's like the diagnosis in the doctor's office is never good, but at least you caught it before, right?
Yeah.
Joshua, did you have?
One more quick note. process-wise, I know we ran into this last time. It's still the opinion of our office that even when you do the emergency resolution, you still have to go through the process for the competitive quote. So you need to get 2 contractors that are ready, able, and willing to do the work, and have each of them submit a good faith bid for it. So just so there's not any confusion like there was last time, we still feel that that's a requirement that you would be expected to do in this project.
Would you say that on the survey as well?
The survey is technically a consulting service.
Okay.
But it would, I mean, it's always good to shop around.
So are we doing a bidding process? Or that's
No,
just
so
your recommendation and
That-
we're not doing it?
No, we do
Or are we
feel
doing
the
it?
competitive quote is different than the formal bidding process. It's less formal,
Okay.
but it still involves contacting at least 2 contractors that can do the work and having them give you a price for it. So that's not something we're doing tonight, but just going forward, I want to make sure we're on the same page about that.
All right, well, thank you for the discussion. We've had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion passes 5-0. We move from one emergency to the other. D is Courthouse Courtroom 203 status and update. This is an information item being brought before the board, and with that, any information you can give us would be appreciated.
Courtroom 203 project is coming along as expected, I guess, if you want to call it that. Later this, right now, the window frames are being painted, so they're in that process. So they're being restored to their blue and, going to be restored to their blue and gray colors. Later in the week, late this week, we hope to have the marble installed. And so within the next couple of weeks, we hope to have that courtroom back open. And Terry, I don't know if you'd like to say a couple words about courtroom 203?
Just that for the people that aren't part of the historical committee, the paint colors have been approved by the state, by the National Park Service, the blue and the gray. So that's exciting. Some of the color scheme we have to deduce from a black and white photo and verbal description in a 1922 article, but that was acceptable to the National Park Service. Is pretty much the best we could do. The blue we could actually find some samples of. The gray we're taking our best bet. So it's pretty exciting. I mean, if you go out there and look, you can see the blue, and it's really, I mean, it's really going to be striking. And someday when all the courtrooms are done, I think it'll look really great, especially with the refurbished glass. So, I'm open to any other questions, I guess. Or Jane, did you have anything else as far as the process?
So Shane Albrecht, Baker Group. Kenny's already shared with everybody that Haverhill should be here either late Thursday or Friday of this next week to start putting the marble back in. The following week, Bogan Reef will be here on Wednesday to start putting the glass in. They think it'll take 2 days to get the glass all back in the courtroom. And then we'll be in the process of getting the courtroom cleaned back up so it's turned back over. Our goal is to have this courtroom turned back over on the 16th, or at least the 16th being that Friday, at least by the following Monday. If we have to clean over the weekend, we have to clean over the weekend. But to get it back up and running by the 19th, so at least it can start using that again. Any other questions?
Talk about the caulk. I thought that was fascinating. 50-year caulk.
So
Who'd have thought there's 50-year caulk?
So one of the things that we're going to do to keep the blue not, because caulk will fade over time if you put a colored caulk, we're going to put a clear silicone 50-year caulk, so that way Kenny's not having to go back to those joints, but we're trying to stop the joints where it previously failed. We're actually going to put a clear silicone over there so that it won't change anybody's perception or color of it. But now we're going to put a 50-year caulk there that's going to be around for a long time because some of the new materials that are available that allow for us to put some longer caulks, so Kenny's not doing it every 5 to 7 years.
So Kenny, you need a calendar. It goes out 50 years. Check caulk.
And that price of paint's not cheap either, is it?
No, sir.
$500 a gallon, did you say?
That's correct. The paint that is $500. The paint that we're putting on is a high-performance anemic paint that's meant to be durable and last for a long period of time. So we spec'd a paint that's supposed to cover the rust, but be great and durable for the longevity as the windows as well.
Don't spill.
Gives you a new perspective of what you buy at Menards.
It does.
All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Item 11 is Chairman's Report. I feel like we just walked through this. Item A, Courthouse Historical Committee. Basically, all of the updates were given. We spent an hour and 15 minutes just talking about repairs, the way forward, being in contact with Steve King, not the congressman, and the landmark folks, Mark Chavez and so on. One of the things that we talked about, and actually Jim Jung thought was a great idea, is to split up. We were at an hour and 15 minutes that we'd been talking about necessary repairs, the 100-year anniversary committee. And so he would like, and they would like the ability to continue working on that and basically split that into its own separate focus because I think we had all sort of weathered the storm at that point and then would be getting into other work. So know that if that can be a separate work group that can meet because I think its focus is so specific to that. Follow up on the Goldberg Group Architect Project. This is a follow-on to last week. I thought that there could be some better backup materials. I'm asking that they come back with some specific examples of what I think is not only looking at some long-term, but really facility optimization and better and more efficient ways of utilizing, streamlining work, safety concerns, and performance. And so I've asked that they come back with any other information that they'd like to share before the board makes a decision. So that would be next week, if there's any questions on that. And then finally, September 12th is a Sloan Town Hall meeting at 7 o'clock p.m. I believe we've been in every rural community now, but 2. And so our hope will be to be in every community as we can by the end of the year. And so that's coming up. Reports on committee meetings is item number 12. We have Siouxland District Health tomorrow. We're going to be going over a home care program in which there seems to be some funding shortfall. I'll report back to the board. Dennis and I met with Kevin Green, and so we'll keep you up to date on that. And other than that, other committee meetings?
I have nothing.
Item 13, citizen concerns. Any concerned citizens who would like to approach the board at this time?
I think this
Sure?
is volunteering.
Okay. And item 14, board concerns and comments. Mr. Clausen, you may owe me another steak for being at under an hour.
Congratulations, Jeremy.
All right, let's adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. This is your PS, and I do need everybody to hold on 1 second. I want to recognize an individual. I think we all want to recognize an individual, and that's Joshua Widman. Joshua has been with the board the past 7 years. We've probably pulled on you in either direction and given you some late night headaches and all of the things that we put on your plate. But you have deftly and calmly guided us to adherence of the Iowa Code. And we all signed a card and have expressed our sentiments in here. So we really appreciate it. It's not a resolution, but we know that you would just want our heartfelt thanks. So thank you very much for all your work. Would you join me in a round of applause? Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Now we're adjourned.